The Deathworlder fleet answers to aliens' cry for help. The emergency signal cut through the quiet hum of the council chamber like a knife. High Coordinator Velnash of the Velrian people watched as the holographic display flickered to life, showing his home colony of Azura Prime. The image was distorted, filled with static, but the message was clear enough. This is Azura Prime. We are under attack. The Krynoth have breached our outer defenses. We have civilians trapped. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. Velnash looked around the Grand Council chamber. Representatives from 40 different species sat in their designated seats, their various forms of bodies shifting uncomfortably. The chamber, built to house the greatest minds of the galaxy, suddenly felt very cold. We must vote on this matter, announced Coordinator Supreme Thelvan, his three eyes blinking slowly. The Krynoth are a dangerous species. Any military action could trigger a wider conflict. Velnash felt his heart sink. They were going to debate. They were going to talk and discuss and vote while his people died. He had seen this before. The Galactic Council moved slowly, carefully, always worried about breaking some ancient treaty or offending some powerful species. How long will the vote take? Velnash asked, his voice barely a whisper. Standard procedure requires a minimum of 72 hours for emergency military intervention, Thelvan replied, not even looking at him. 72 hours, 3 days. His people would be dead or enslaved by then. Far across the galaxy, Captain Tae-sung sat in the command chair of the UHSF Indomitable. The United Human Space Force vessel was on routine patrol near the edge of mapped space. It was boring work, the kind that made younger crew members restless. Tae-sung preferred boring. Boring meant everyone went home alive. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Commander Hye-jin from the communication station. She was his first officer, a woman who had served with him for 8 years. He trusted her instincts. "What kind of strange?" Tae-sung asked. "It's a distress call, old format, but definitely legitimate. Someone's in trouble." Hye-jin tapped her screen, bringing up the audio. The desperate voice of the Velrian colonist filled the bridge. Lieutenant Dae-hyun, the tactical officer, leaned forward in his seat. "Sir, that signal is broadcasting on emergency frequencies, but I'm not seeing any council response." "How long has it been transmitting?" Tae-sung asked. "According to the timestamp, almost 3 days, sir." 3 days. Tae-sung felt anger rise in his chest. 3 days, and no one had responded. He knew how the council worked. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 20 years, but they had learned quickly. The council talked while people died. "Helm, set a course for those coordinates. Maximum speed," Tae-sung ordered. "Sir, we don't have authorization," Dae-hyun said carefully. "This isn't our sector. Protocol says we should report this to command and wait for orders." Tae-sung stood up from his chair. He was not a tall man, but when he drew himself up, people listened. "There are people dying out there, Lieutenant. Human protocol says we help people who need help. I'll deal with command later." "Yes, sir," Dae-hyun said, with a slight smile. He had hoped the captain would say that. Down in engineering, Sora was running diagnostics on the FTL drive when the alert came through. They were going to jump, and they were going to jump hard. She grinned. Finally, something interesting. She pulled up her team on the comm. "All right, people, listen up. We're about to push the engines to maximum for an extended jump. I want all systems checked twice. If something breaks in FTL, we're not stopping to fix it." Her team moved quickly. They were good at their jobs, and they knew Sora didn't give orders unless they mattered. In the medical bay, Dr. Sung-ho received the alert and immediately began preparing. If they were responding to a distress call, there would be wounded. He started pulling supplies, organizing trauma kits, and programming the medical computers with all available data on Velrian physiology. It wasn't much. Humans had only met Velrians a handful of times. The Indomitable shuddered as it entered FTL. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a moment, then came back up. On the view screen, stars stretched into lines as space folded around them. "ETA to Azura Prime, 4 hours," announced the helm officer. Tae-sung sat back down. 4 hours. He hoped it would be enough time. He turned to Hye-jin. "Send a message to the colony. Let them know we're coming. Yes, sir. What should I tell them? Tai Sung thought for a moment. Tell them to hold on. Tell them help is on the way. Hyejin composed the message and sent it. She wondered if the colonists would be happy to see them. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most dangerous planets known to support life. Most species needed special suits just to walk on Earth's surface. The gravity was too strong, the atmosphere too reactive, the wildlife too deadly. Humans were the only species to evolve to sentience on a Class 12 world. That made other species nervous. Very nervous. Do you think they'll want our help? Hyejin asked quietly. Tae Sung looked at her. Doesn't matter if they want it. They need it. That's enough. Back at the council chamber, Velnash received the message. His assistant, a young Velrian named Pelkin, brought him the data pad with shaking hands. Sir, someone responded to our distress call. Velnash grabbed the pad. His eyes widened as he read it. Humans? The humans are coming? Yes, sir. 3 ships. They say they'll arrive in less than 4 hours. Velnash didn't know if he should feel relieved or more afraid. He had heard stories about humans. They were warriors from a death planet. They ate meat, hunted for sport, and their entire history was filled with violence. Some species whispered that humans were barely civilized predators who had stumbled into space travel. But they were coming. They were the only ones coming. Send them all our tactical data, Velnash ordered. Everything we have on the Kreenoth positions, our defense capabilities, civilian locations. If the humans are going to help us, they need to know what they're facing. Are you sure, sir? Giving military data to humans? Would you rather die with your secret safe? Or live with humans knowing our defenses? Velnash snapped. Pelkin bowed his head and sent the data. On the Indomitable, Daehyun received the tactical information and pulled it up on his screens. He whistled low. Captain, you need to see this. The Kreenoth have 12 warships in orbit, heavy cruisers. The colonists have maybe an hour before their shields fail completely. Tae Sung nodded. Then we'd better be ready. Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations. Hyejin, contact the Defender and the Resolute. Tell them to match our speed and prepare for combat. The 2 support vessels acknowledged. The small human fleet pushed their engines harder, racing toward Azura Prime. In his quarters, Tae Sung recorded a message to be sent to Earth Command. He knew he would probably face a court-martial for this. He had violated orders, crossed into restricted space, and committed his ships to combat without authorization. But his father had taught him something long ago, back on Earth. His father had been a firefighter, someone who ran into burning buildings when everyone else ran out. He had told young Tae Sung that some things were more important than rules. Some things required action, not permission. Tae Sung finished his message and sent it. Then he returned to the bridge and waited for the battle to begin. The Deathworlder fleet. Answers to aliens' cry for help. The Indomitable dropped out of FTL space at the edge of the Azura Prime system. What they saw made even experienced crew members go silent. 12 massive Kreenoth warships circled the planet like vultures. Blue energy beams lanced down from orbit, hammering the protective shield that covered the main colony. The shield flickered with each hit, growing weaker. Tactical report, Tae Sung ordered. Daehyun's fingers flew across his console. 12 Kreenoth heavy cruisers as reported. They outgun us 3-1. Colony shields are at 18% and falling. They have maybe 30 minutes before total collapse. What about the Kreenoth sensors? Do they see us? Yes, sir. 3 ships are breaking orbit and moving to intercept us. Tae Sung smiled without humor. They think 3 ships aren't a threat. Good. Let them keep thinking that. Hyejin, open a channel to all ships. Channel open, sir. Defender, Resolute. This is Indomitable Actual. Execute Attack Plan Delta. Weapons free. Show them what a Death World species can do. The 3 human ships split formation. It was a move that made no sense to traditional galactic naval tactics. Council doctrine said ships should stay together, support each other with overlapping shields. But humans didn't fight like the Council. The Kreenoth ships approaching them were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Indomitable. Their hulls were decorated with marks from previous conquests. They had been raiders for centuries, and they knew they were feared across the galaxy. Commander Hyojin watched the tactical display. Entering weapons range in 30 seconds. The lead Krynoth ship is charging weapons. Return fire the moment we're in range. Target their weapons arrays first. I want them confused, not dead. Not yet, Taesung said. The Krynoth fired first. Plasma bolts streaked toward the Indomitable. The human ship rolled hard to port, dodging most of the incoming fire. The few hits that connected splashed against the shields, draining them by 20%. Return fire, Taesung commanded. The Indomitable's railguns opened up. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, hammered into the Krynoth vessel. The raiders' shields held, but barely. The Krynoth commander was shocked. These small human ships packed incredible firepower. Second volley, fire, Daehyun called out. This time, the railgun shots punched through the weakened shields and tore into the Krynoth ship's weapon batteries. Explosions rippled along its hull. The raider ship began to list to one side, venting atmosphere. The other two Krynoth ships split up, trying to flank the human vessels. But the Defender and Resolute were already moving. They came in fast and low, a maneuver that required precise piloting and tolerance for high G-forces. For humans, who evolved in Earth's heavy gravity, it was uncomfortable but manageable. For most species, such acceleration would have killed them. Down on Azura Prime, Velnash watched the orbital battle on his screens. His hands trembled. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They took risks that seemed insane, made maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. But somehow, it was working. "They're mad," whispered Pelkin beside him. "They fight like they don't care if they die." Velnash shook his head. "No, they fight like they care very much that we don't die. There's a difference." In space, the battle grew fiercer. The Indomitable closed to point-blank range with the damaged Krynoth ship. It was so close that the two vessels nearly touched. "Are we ramming them?" asked the helm officer, his voice pitched high with adrenaline. "Not ramming, boarding," Taesung said calmly. "Hyejin, you're up. Take your team and show them what human marines can do." Hyejin stood and grabbed her rifle. "With pleasure, sir." She gathered her boarding team in the airlock. 15 marines, all wearing combat armor. The armor was heavy by galactic standards, but humans needed the protection less than other species. Their bones were denser, their bodies more resistant to damage. Evolution on Earth had made them tough. "Remember your training," Hyejin told her team. "Krynoth are bigger and stronger than us, but they're used to soft targets. They've never fought someone who hits back. Make every shot count. Move fast. Watch each other's backs." The boarding tube shot out from the Indomitable and punched into the Krynoth hull. Explosive charges blew open a hole. Hyejin went through first, rifle up, scanning for targets. The interior of the Krynoth ship was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Hyejin's team moved through the corridors like shadows. They had trained for this in Earth's toughest environments, in gravity chambers set to crushing levels, in temperatures that ranged from freezing to scorching. The first Krynoth warrior they encountered was over 7 feet tall, covered in thick scales, and armed with an energy blade. It roared when it saw the humans and charged forward. Hyejin put 3 rounds into its chest. The Krynoth staggered but didn't fall. It had tough armor and tougher hide. But humans understood something that most species didn't. You don't have to kill an enemy to stop them. You just have to hurt them enough. Her next 3 shots took out the Krynoth's knee. The warrior fell, roaring in pain and rage. 2 of her marines moved past and secured the corridor ahead. They fought their way to the bridge. The Krynoth crew tried to stop them, but they had never faced soldiers like this before. Humans moved with terrifying coordination. They communicated in short, efficient bursts. They didn't panic when wounded. One marine took a blast to the shoulder that would have killed most species from shock alone. He just switched his rifle to his other hand and kept fighting. The Krynoth captain was a scarred veteran named Rekthar. He had raided dozens of worlds, enslaved thousands. He stood on his bridge holding a massive war axe and roared a challenge at the boarding party. Hyejin looked at him calmly. "You can surrender now." Rekthar laughed. It was a deep, booming sound. You think I fear you, little mammal? I am Rekthar the Destroyer. I have crushed empires. That's great, Heejin said. We crushed our own planet into submission just by surviving there. Your move. Rekthar charged. He was fast for something so large. His axe came down in a killing arc. But Hyejin had already moved. She rolled under the swing and came up behind him, her rifle pressed against the back of his neck. I said, surrender. Rekthar froze. Around him, his crew dropped their weapons. They had seen enough. These humans were small, but they were fast and ruthless, and they simply did not stop. Back in space, the Defender had disabled a second Krynoth ship. The Resolute was locked in combat with the third. The remaining 9 Krynoth vessels in orbit had stopped bombarding the colony and were turning to face this new threat. Sora's voice came over the comm from engineering. Captain, shields are down to 40%. Hull integrity is holding, but we can't take many more hits like that. Understood. How's the FTL drive? Ready when you are, sir. But I'd really prefer we don't try to jump in the middle of a fight. Noted, Taesung said with a slight smile. On the captured Krynoth bridge, Heejin accessed their communications array. She broadcast on all frequencies, making sure every raider ship could hear her. Attention Krynoth fleet. This is Commander Hyejin of the United Human Space Force. You have attacked innocent civilians. You have murdered and enslaved. That ends now. You have 2 choices. Leave this system immediately, or we will destroy every one of your ships. Rekthar, kneeling on his own bridge with human weapons pointed at him, laughed bitterly. You're insane. You have 3 ships. We have 9. You cannot win. Heejin looked at him. Maybe. But we're from Earth. Do you know what that means? It means our planet tried to kill us every single day of our evolution. Predators, diseases, weather, gravity, our own food was often poisonous. We survived anyway. We thrived. So trust me when I say this. Rekthar the Destroyer. We are very, very good at not dying, and we're even better at making sure the people who threaten our friends don't get to walk away. The Krynoth fleet hesitated. They had heard stories about Earth, about the Deathworld humans called home. They had dismissed them as exaggerations. Now, seeing 3 small human ships that should have been destroyed but were somehow still fighting, they wondered if the stories had been too kind. One Krynoth captain broke ranks and activated his FTL drive, fleeing the system. Then another. Then 3 more. Within minutes, only 4 Krynoth ships remained, and they were powering up to retreat as well. Taesung watched them go. Hold fire. Let them run. Make sure they tell everyone what happened here. Down on Azura Prime, Velnash could barely believe what he was seeing. The humans had come, outnumbered 4-1, and had won. The colony was saved. But as relief washed over him, a new fear crept in. What kind of species could do this? What kind of warriors were coming down to his planet? The Deathworlder fleet. Answers to aliens' cry for help. Dr. Sung Ho stepped off the transport shuttle and onto Azura Prime. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, almost pleasant. The air was thin but breathable with the help of a small respirator. Around him, the Velrian colony looked like it had been hit by a storm. Buildings were damaged, scorch marks covered the walls, and frightened civilians watched from doorways. A group of Velrian medical staff waited at the landing pad. They kept their distance from the humans. Sung Ho noticed how they flinched when he walked toward them. He stopped and held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. I'm Dr. Sung Ho. I'm here to help with the wounded. The lead Velrian doctor, whose name badge said Pelvin, nodded slowly. We appreciate your assistance, but we must inform you that Velrian physiology is very different from human. Perhaps it would be better if... I've already downloaded your medical database, Sung Ho interrupted gently. Your people have 3 hearts, a crystalline skeletal structure, and a nervous system based on electrical pulses rather than chemical signals. I know this. I can help. Pelvin stared at him. You learned all that since you arrived? I had 4 hours during the flight here. Now please, show me where the wounded are. We can talk about differences later. Right now, people need help. In the colony's central administrative building, Captain Tae-sung met with Velnash. The Velrian administrator was even smaller in person, barely reaching Tae-sung's chest. His skin had a slight blue tint, and his large eyes never stopped moving, watching everything. Captain, I don't know how to thank you, Velnash began. You saved us when no one else would. The Galactic Council is still debating, I'm sure, Tae-sung said. He tried to keep the bitterness out of his voice. We didn't come for thanks. We came because it was the right thing to do. Still, we are in your debt. Please, tell me what you need. Tae-sung pulled up a holographic display. According to our intelligence, the Krynoth we just fought were only a scouting force. The main fleet will be here soon. They won't run away a second time. Velnash felt his heart sink. How many ships? Our estimate is 50 to 60 warships. They're going to come with everything they have. The room went quiet. Pelkin, who stood in the corner, made a small sound of despair. Velnash struggled to keep his composure. Then we cannot win. Even with your help, Captain, 3 ships against 60 is suicide. Tae-sung smiled, and it was not a comforting expression. 3 ships is suicide if you fight the way the Council teaches. But we're human. We don't fight fair, we fight to win, and I have a plan, but I need your help. Across the colony, Commander Hyejin walked through the streets with Lieutenant Dae-hyun. They were surveying the defenses, making notes of what could be improved. Velrian civilians watched them pass, some hiding, others staring with open curiosity. They're afraid of us, Dae-hyun observed quietly. Can you blame them? They've never seen predators who could talk back, Hyejin replied. A small Velrian child peeked out from behind a building. She couldn't have been more than 6 in human years. Her eyes were huge, and she clutched a small musical instrument to her chest. Hyejin knelt down slowly, making herself smaller, less threatening. Hi there. What's your name? The child didn't answer, but she didn't run either. She held up her instrument and played a few notes. It was a simple melody, pretty and clear. From behind Hyejin, a voice called out. That's Velrian for thank you. She's saying thank you. Hyejin turned to see a young human ensign named Yuna approaching. Yuna had been studying xenolinguistics before joining the Space Force. She smiled at the child and hummed the melody back. The Velrian child's eyes went wide with delight. She played another tune, more complex this time. Yuna hummed it back, then added her own variation. The child laughed, a sound like wind chimes. See, Yuna said to Hyejin. We're not so scary once you get to know us. The child's mother rushed out and grabbed her daughter, pulling her back inside. But before she disappeared, the mother looked back at Yuna and nodded once. It was a small gesture, but it mattered. In the engineering section of the Indomitable, Sora was working on something that made her team nervous. She had commandeered 6 orbital defense satellites from the Velrians and was modifying them with parts stripped from the captured Krynoth ship. Boss, are you sure about this? Asked one of her technicians. These satellites weren't designed to handle this kind of power output. That's the point, Sora said, not looking up from her work. The Krynoth will scan them and see standard defense satellites. They won't know we've turned them into bombs until it's too late. Bombs that might also explode while we're installing them. Then we better install them carefully. Sora knew her plan was risky. It was the kind of plan that only made sense to humans, who had learned to turn anything and everything into a weapon during their violent history. The Galactic Council would probably file an official complaint. That was fine. She would rather be alive and in trouble than dead and polite. Back in the administrative building, Tae-sung explained his plan to Velnash. The Velrian's eyes grew wider with each detail. You want to weaponize our planet's magnetosphere? Captain, that could cause massive system failures. Our computers, our communications, even life support could be affected. I know. But it will also fry every Krynoth ship that doesn't have proper shielding against electromagnetic pulses. And from what we've seen, they don't. They rely on plasma shields, which are useless against EMP. But your ships will be affected too. Our ships have analog backup systems, old technology from before we had advanced computers. We designed them that way because we learned in our world wars that electronics can always be destroyed. So we made sure our ships could still fight even without computers. Velnash was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. The council would never approve such a plan. Too risky. Too much potential for collateral damage. Good thing we're not asking the council, Taesung said. We're asking you. This is your world, Administrator. Your people. Your choice. Velnash looked at the human captain. Taesung was calm, confident, and completely serious about fighting a battle he had no logical reason to believe he could win. It was insane. It was reckless. It was everything the Galactic Council stood against. Do it, Velnash said. Save my people. Over the next day, humans and Velrians worked together. Dr. Sung Ho's medical teams treated wounded colonists. At first, the Velrians were hesitant, but when they saw that the human doctor was gentle and skilled, they began to relax. Sung Ho worked for 18 hours straight, stopping only when Pelvin physically forced him to rest. How are you still functioning? Pelvin asked. You haven't slept. You've barely eaten. Any Velrian would have collapsed by now. Sung Ho drank some water and smiled tiredly. Humans evolved to be persistence hunters. We don't have the speed or strength of Earth's top predators, but we can keep going longer than anything else. Sleep deprivation is just another challenge to overcome. Pelvin shook his head in wonder. Your species is remarkable. Terrifying, but remarkable. In orbit, Sora completed the satellite modifications. She also had her team working on the Indomitable's weapon systems, making adjustments that would make them more effective in the coming battle. Dae-Hyun coordinated with the Velrian militia, teaching them basic combat tactics. The Velrians were not natural fighters. Their species had evolved on a low-gravity world with few predators. The concept of organized violence was still strange to them. But they were willing to learn. Their world was at stake. On the second day, the long-range sensors picked up the Krynoth Armada. 63 warships all heading toward Azura Prime at maximum speed. They would arrive in less than 6 hours. Taesung called a meeting of all department heads. This is it. Everyone knows their jobs. The Krynoth are coming for blood. They want to make an example of us and the Velrians. They want to show the galaxy that resistance is futile. So what do we show them? Asked Heejin. Taesung stood up. We show them that humans don't know how to quit. We show them that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are impossible. We show them why Earth is a death world and why that makes us dangerous. Around the table, humans and Velrians alike nodded. They were ready. As the meeting ended, Velnash approached Taesung privately. Captain, I must ask, why? Why risk everything for people you barely know? Your own government will likely punish you for this. Taesung looked out the window at the colony below. My father was a firefighter. He ran into burning buildings for a living. I asked him once why he did it. He said, because someone has to, and I'm able to. That's all the reason I need, Administrator. Someone has to help you, and we're able to. Velnash felt something he had never felt before about humans. Not fear, not suspicion, respect. In space, the Krynoth Armada dropped out of FTL. They filled the space around Azura Prime like a swarm of locusts. Their commander, War Chief Graltok, looked at his sensors and laughed. 3 human ships. They dare to stand against us? Foolish mammals. We will crush them, enslave the Velrians, and mount the human captain's skull on my throne. But Graltok had never fought humans before. He had no idea what he was about to face. The Deathworlder fleet. Answers to aliens' cry for help. The Krynoth Armada spread across space like a predator showing its teeth. 63 warships, each one bristling with weapons. War Chief Graltok sat on his command throne and watched the 3 small human ships that dared to stand against him. Pathetic, he growled. They stand alone. No council ships, no reinforcements. Just 3 tiny vessels thinking they can stop us. His second-in-command leaned closer. War Chief, our scouts reported these humans fight strangely. Perhaps we should be cautious. Graltok backhanded him across the face. Cautious? I am War Chief Graltok. I have conquered 12 systems. I will not be cautious of mammals from a backwater world. He activated the fleet-wide communication. All ships, advance. Destroy the humans. Show them the price of defiance. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Tae-sung watched the Krynoth fleet advance. His crew was silent, each person focused on their station. The odds were insane. Any reasonable military commander would retreat. But Tae-sung had stopped being reasonable the moment he heard that first distress call. All ships, this is Indomitable Actual, he spoke calmly into the comm. Execute the plan. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them all. We just need to hurt them enough to make them think twice, and remind them that humans don't break easy. Yes, sir, came the replies from the Defender and Resolute. Sora, are the satellites in position? From Engineering, Sora's voice crackled over the speaker. All 6 satellites positioned around the planet, waiting for your signal. But Captain, I should remind you this is completely untested. We could fry every electronic system in the area, including ours. That's why we have analog backups. Prepare to activate on my mark. The Krynoth fleet split into 3 groups, each one targeting a human ship. Graltok wanted this to be quick and brutal. He would broadcast the destruction of these humans across the galaxy as a warning. The first group of 20 Krynoth ships opened fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams cut through space toward the Indomitable. The human ship rolled hard, dodging some shots while taking others on its shields. The shields held, but barely. Return fire, Daehyun shouted. The Indomitable's railguns hammered out rounds. Solid metal traveling at incredible speeds slammed into Krynoth shields. 2 ships took damage, but the rest pressed forward. They're trying to surround us, Heejin reported. Classic pincer movement. Let them think they're succeeding, Tae-sung said. Helm, take us closer to the planet. Make it look like we're retreating. The Indomitable dove toward Azura Prime, the Krynoth ships following eagerly. On the Defender and Resolute, the same tactic was playing out. The human ships led their enemies exactly where they wanted them. On the ground, Dr. Sung-ho was in the colony's main medical facility when the bombardment started. Krynoth ships that hadn't engaged the human vessels were firing on the colony shields. The building shook with each impact. Get the critical patients to the basement, Sung-ho ordered. Anyone who can walk, help those who can't. Pelvin rushed to his side. Dr. Sung-ho, we need to evacuate you. If the building collapses, then it collapses. I'm not leaving these patients. Sung-ho continued working, treating a Velrian with burns across his chest. His hands were steady even as the building shook around him. In space, the Krynoth had the human ships exactly where they wanted them. Or so they thought. Graltok smiled as his forces closed in. The humans were trapped against the planet, nowhere left to run. Finish them, he commanded. That's when Tae-sung gave the signal. Sora, now! Down on Azura Prime, the 6 modified satellites activated. They didn't fire weapons. Instead, they created a massive electromagnetic pulse, amplified and focused by the planet's natural magnetosphere. The pulse rippled outward in a sphere of invisible energy. The Krynoth ships closest to the planet died first. Their computer systems fried instantly. Shields failed, weapons went offline, life support stuttered. Ships that had been hunting the humans moments ago went dark and silent, drifting in space. The pulse spread further, catching more Krynoth vessels. 40 of the 63 warships were disabled in the first wave. Their crews were alive but helpless, floating in dead ships. The human vessels were also hit by the pulse. Computers sparked and died. Screens went black. But then, something happened that the Krynoth had never seen before. The human ships kept fighting. Analog systems kicked in. Manual controls, mechanical targeting, physical switches, and levers. Systems designed in Earth's early space age, before computers, before digital technology. Systems that every other species in the galaxy had abandoned as primitive. Backup power online, Sora shouted. We've got 30% functionality, but we're flying. Tae-sung gripped his command chair. Target the functional Krynoth ships. They're confused. Hit them while they're trying to figure out what happened. The Indomitable, Defender, and Resolute opened fire with their remaining weapons. They targeted the 23 Krynoth ships that were far enough from the planet to avoid the pulse. But now the odds were better. 3 against 23 was still bad, but it was better than 3 against 60. Graltok roared in rage on his bridge. His ship had been far enough out to survive the pulse, but he had just lost 2/3 of his fleet to some kind of weapon he had never seen before. What was that? What did they do? His technical officer was frantically checking systems. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, War Chief, amplified through the planet's magnetosphere. I've never seen anything like it. The humans weaponized an entire planet's magnetic field. That's impossible. No species would risk such a thing. The humans did it anyway, War Chief. Graltok realized something then. These humans were truly from a death world. They didn't think like civilized species. They fought like cornered animals, using every advantage, taking risks that would make any sane commander flinch. All remaining ships, pull back, reform at safe distance. But pulling back meant turning away from the human ships, and the humans did not miss the opportunity. The 3 vessels pressed their attack, firing everything they had. 2 more Krynoth ships took critical damage and had to withdraw. On the ground, the real fight was just beginning. Graltok, seeing his fleet in chaos, ordered his ground forces to attack the colony directly. If he couldn't win in space, he would take the planet by force. Thousands of Krynoth warriors dropped from their ships in assault pods. They crashed into the colony's outskirts, spilling out with weapons ready. The Velrian militia, trained by Daehyun's team, tried to hold them back. But the Krynoth were bigger, stronger, and more experienced at ground combat. Sergeant Wu Jin led a squad of human marines to reinforce the Velrian positions. He was a short, stocky man with a scar across his jaw and eyes that had seen too much combat. He took one look at the situation and started barking orders. Set up a defensive line here. Mines at 50 meters. Snipers on the rooftops. Move, move, move! A young Velrian militia member looked at him with wide eyes. There are thousands of them. How can we possibly hold? Wu Jin checked his rifle and smiled grimly. Because humans are really good at defending things we care about. Now pick up that weapon and get in position. The Krynoth charged the defensive line. They expected to overwhelm it quickly. Instead, they ran into a wall of coordinated fire. Human marines and Velrian militia worked together, covering each other, falling back to prepared positions, making the Krynoth pay for every meter of ground. Wu Jin fought in the center of the line. A Krynoth warrior, twice his size, rushed at him with a blade. Wu Jin dodged the first swing, caught the second on his rifle, and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him off balance. Then he put 3 rounds into the warrior's exposed neck. It was brutal, efficient, and effective, but there were too many. The Krynoth kept coming, wave after wave. Wu Jin's ammunition was running low. Several of his marines were wounded. The Velrians, brave as they were exhausted. They weren't built for this kind of sustained combat. "We need to fall back to the colony center," shouted Daehyun over the comm. He had been coordinating the defense from a command post, but had joined the fight when things got desperate. "All units, fighting retreat. Stay together." They pulled back slowly, fighting every step of the way. The Krynoth pressed after them, sensing victory. They drove deeper into the colony, past destroyed buildings and burning vehicles. What the Krynoth didn't know was that they were being led into a trap. Wu Jin and Daehyun had prepared the colony center with every defensive advantage they could think of. Narrow streets that prevented large formations. High positions for snipers. Choke points where superior numbers didn't matter. And explosives. Lots and lots of explosives. When the Krynoth were fully committed to the urban center, Wu Jin gave the signal. Charges planted throughout the district detonated. Buildings collapsed, blocking retreat routes. Fire and debris filled the air. The Krynoth found themselves trapped in a killing ground. Graltok watched from his command ship as his ground assault fell apart. His fleet was crippled. His warriors were being slaughtered by an enemy that refused to give up. And above it all, those 3 cursed human ships kept fighting, kept moving, kept inflicting damage despite being hopelessly outnumbered. "War Chief, we should retreat," his second-in-command urged. "We've lost too much." Graltok wanted to refuse. His pride demanded it, but his survival instinct was stronger. All ships prepare to jump to FTL. Ground forces, emergency extraction. But before he could give the final order, something appeared on his sensors. More ships dropping out of FTL. Lots of ships. For a moment, Graltok felt hope. Reinforcements? Then he saw the identification codes. Galactic Council fleet. 30 pristine warships arriving at last. The Deathworlder fleet answers to aliens' cry for help. The 30 Galactic Council warships emerged from FTL and took up positions around Azura Prime. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and advanced, with shields that glowed like rainbows. They made both the battered human ships and the damaged Krynoth fleet look primitive by comparison. But they did not fire. They simply watched. Captain Tae-sung stared at his tactical display in disbelief. They're here, finally here, and they're just sitting there. Heejin checked her sensors. No weapons charging, no movement toward either us or the Krynoth. Captain, I think they're observing. Observing? Tae-sung felt anger rise in his chest. People are dying down there and they're observing? A communication request came through from the Council flagship. Tae-sung accepted it. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Fleet Commander Thelvan, his 3 eyes blinking slowly. Captain Tae-sung of Earth, you have violated Galactic Council space regulations, engaged in unauthorized military action, and deployed weapons that caused widespread system damage. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Tae-sung stood up, facing the screen directly. With all due respect, Commander, we responded to a distress call that your council ignored for 3 days. Innocent people were dying. We did what was necessary. Necessary? Thelvan's middle eye narrowed. You weaponized a planet's magnetosphere. You could have destroyed every electronic system in this sector. Such recklessness is exactly why Deathworld species must be monitored carefully. And what would you have done? Talked about it some more while the Velrians were enslaved? At least we did something. Before Thelvan could respond, another voice cut into the channel. It was Velnash, broadcasting from the colony. His voice was weak but determined. Commander Thelvan, I am Administrator Velnash of Azura Prime. For the record, the humans saved us when no one else would. They risked their lives, their ships, and their careers for people they barely knew. If that is recklessness, then I wish more species in this galaxy were reckless. Thelvan was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less formal. Administrator Velnash, the Council deeply regrets the delay in responding to your situation. However, protocol must be followed. These humans are heroes, Velnash interrupted. And if you punish them for saving my people, then the Galactic Council stands for nothing. Down on the planet, the arrival of Council ships had one immediate effect. The Krynoth stopped fighting. Graltok knew that even his full fleet couldn't take on the Council Navy. With most of his ships disabled, he had no choice. All forces, cease fire, prepare for withdrawal, he ordered bitterly. Sergeant Wu Jin heard the order come across the enemy's communication channels. The Krynoth warriors began pulling back, dragging their wounded with them. The humans and Velrians held their positions, weapons ready, not trusting the retreat. Wu Jin slumped against a wall, exhausted. A Velrian militia member named Tolvan approached him carefully. During the battle, they had fought side by side. Wu Jin had saved his life twice, and Tolvan had returned the favor once. Is it over? Tolvan asked quietly. For now, Wu Jin replied. He looked at the young Velrian. You did good today. Better than good. You stood your ground when most people would have run. Tolvan's eyes widened. You mean that? A human thinks I fought well? You fought beside me and didn't quit. That's all that matters. In the medical facility, Dr. Sung Ho had been working non-stop for almost 40 hours. The battle had left hundreds wounded, both Velrian and human. He moved from patient to patient, treating injuries, stabilizing critical cases, and occasionally catching a few minutes of sleep in a chair. Pelvin watched him with amazement. You should be dead from exhaustion. How are you still functioning? Sung Ho looked up from treating a burn victim. His eyes were red, His hands shook slightly, but he smiled. Because people still need help. My body can rest when everyone is stable. He paused. Also, I've had about 15 cups of coffee. That helps. What is coffee? A magical earth beverage. I'll make you some later. In orbit, the standoff continued. The Council ships maintained their position. The Krynoth fleet was gathering its disabled vessels and preparing to leave. And the 3 human ships, battered but still operational, waited to see what would happen next. Commander Thelvan called another conference. This time, it included not just Tae Sung and Velnash, but also War Chief Graltok. Graltok's face on the screen showed barely controlled rage. I demand justice. The humans used illegal weapons. They destroyed my fleet with dishonorable tactics. Tae Sung laughed without humor. Illegal? You came here to enslave innocent people. You attacked civilians. And you're complaining about tactics? Enough, Thelvan said firmly. War Chief Graltok, your actions constitute an unprovoked attack on a Council-protected world. You will withdraw immediately and present yourself for Council judgment. But the humans defended a member species when we failed to do so in time. That is not a crime, no matter how unconventional their methods. Thelvan turned to Tai Sung. However, Captain, your actions do require review. The Council must determine if such tactics are acceptable under our laws. I understand, Tai Sung said, but I won't apologize for saving lives. I am not asking you to apologize. I am asking you to come to the Council homeworld and explain your actions. Let the galaxy see what humans did here. Let them judge for themselves. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened a special session. The Grand Chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Captain Tae Sung stood before them, along with his senior officers. They wore their dress uniforms, showing every bit of wear and damage from the battle. The session was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as the humans were questioned, as they explained their actions, as they defended their choices. When it came time for testimony, Administrator Velnash spoke first. He told of the 3 days his people waited for help that never came. He described the arrival of the human ships, their impossible battle, their refusal to abandon the colony even when defeat seemed certain. They are from a death world, Velnash said, a planet that tried to kill them every day. And yes, that makes them dangerous. But it also makes them strong. It makes them brave. It makes them the kind of people who run toward danger instead of away from it. The galaxy needs more species like humanity, not fewer. Dr. Sung Ho testified about treating the wounded. He spoke of how humans and Velrians had worked together, how barriers of fear had broken down when people focused on helping each other. Sergeant Wu Jin spoke about the ground battle. He didn't glorify the violence. He simply stated facts. The Krynoth had attacked. The defenders had fought back. People had died, but more people had lived because humans stood their ground. When all testimony was finished, Coordinator Supreme Thelvan stood. This council has deliberated. While we do not condone unauthorized military action, we recognize that the humans acted with honor. They responded to a distress call. They protected innocent lives. They showed both courage and restraint. He paused. Therefore, no charges will be filed against Captain Tae Sung or his crew. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species cheered, others protested, but the decision was made. Afterward, in a private meeting, Thelvan spoke with Tae Sung one final time. You have changed things, Captain. The galaxy now knows that humans will not stand by when others suffer. Some species will see that as a threat, but others will see it as hope. What do you see it as? Tae Sung asked. Thelvan's 3 eyes focused on him intently. I see it as the beginning of something new. The Council has become comfortable, slow to act, afraid of risk. You reminded us that sometimes action is necessary, even when it's difficult, perhaps especially when it's difficult. Back at Azura Prime, the colony was rebuilding. Human engineers worked alongside Velrians, repairing damage and improving defenses. The 2 species that had been strangers weeks ago now worked together easily. Engineer Sora supervised the reconstruction of the orbital defense grid. This time, it was a joint human-Velrian project, combining human creativity with Velrian technical precision. She had a permanent grin on her face. The challenge of building something new excited her more than the battle had. Ensign Yuna taught music classes to Velrian children. It turned out that while their species were vastly different, they both loved art and beauty. The children adored her, and their parents, who had once feared humans, now invited Yuna to their homes for dinner. Commander Heejin received a promotion and was offered a position on a new joint task force. Her job would be to coordinate between human forces and council military. It was a diplomatic nightmare waiting to happen, but she accepted with enthusiasm. Lieutenant Dae-hyun stayed on Azura Prime for 6 months, helping train the Velrian militia. He discovered he had a talent for teaching, and when he finally returned to Earth, it was with a promise to come back and visit. On the day the human fleet prepared to depart Azura Prime, the entire colony came out to see them off. Velnash stood at the spaceport, his eyes reflecting the afternoon sun. "You changed us, Captain," he said to Taesung. "We were peaceful to the point of being helpless. You showed us that peace is worth fighting for." "Just remember," Taesung replied, "being able to fight and choosing to fight are different things. Fight only when you must. For the rest, talk. Trade. Make friends. That's how civilizations really survive." The Indomitable, Defender, and Resolute lifted off from Azura Prime. As they climbed toward orbit, every Velrian in the colony stopped what they were doing to watch. They raised their hands in salute, a gesture they had learned from the humans. On the Indomitable's bridge, Taesung sat in his command chair and looked at his crew. They were tired, scarred, and proud. They had done the impossible. They had answered a call for help and changed the galaxy in the process. "Course plotted for Earth, Captain," announced the helm officer. "Actually," Taesung said slowly, "plot a course for Sector 447. I'm picking up some strange readings on the long-range sensors. Might be nothing, but we should check it out." Hyejin smiled. "Or it might be someone else who needs help." "Exactly." The 3 human ships jumped to FTL, disappearing in flashes of light. But the message they left behind spread across the galaxy like ripples in water. The humans were watching. The Deathworlders would answer when others called for help. Those who preyed on the weak now had something to fear. And on Earth, the story of the Indomitable became legend. It was taught to every new recruit who joined the United Human Space Force. It was the story of 3 ships against impossible odds. The story of humans doing what needed to be done because no one else would. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of the Deathworlder fleet had begun. And across the stars, wherever people cried out for help, that fleet was ready to answer. Because someone had to. And humans were able to.